Well, everyone, welcome to a Sunday evening live stream. Something I haven't done for a very long time, but we were overdue. And hey, it's been a pretty awesome weekend. We've had our Black Friday extravaganza where we've been frantically trying to get all of the Christmas presents that we can get at the lowest discounted prices. At least that's what the Holthe family's been doing. But it is so good to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the probably one of the live streams that I enjoy doing the most. And I guess one of the missions that I've given myself is to do my very best to warn people about the challenges of Canadian immigration. And let's face it, we are in unprecedented times. And I think many of you, the reality is, you're wondering what the future holds for you. You're wondering, if I'm lucky enough to get an invitation to apply for express entry or a potential opportunity to go through, an expression of interest through one of the provinces, is it going to work for me? Is it going to go through? Because everybody says it's so easy, but I can tell you, and if you watched my Halloween episode with the Halloween horror stories, the smallest little things can disrupt everything. And never before have the consequences been so severe if you get something wrong. And I'm going to talk about those today. Now, we're definitely going to give time for people to connect in, to ask questions. There's going to be Q&As throughout. But I want to, and I feel like I'm compelled to share with you guys my 3 top problems that people have with their express entry applications in hopes that you guys will not fall into the same trap. Because there are no second chances anymore. They're not. And so these little mistakes that I'm going to share with you today are ones that will absolutely destroy your express entry application. And the reality is those problems can transfer in the same way to provincial nominee applications. So I hope you'll pay attention. I hope you join me as we go through this. I want to do a few quick shout outs here. We've got Colleen Fay, who's tuning in from Edmonton. Welcome. Joe, good to see you. Yes, a Sunday night. We do it at all hours, and it's great to catch you. And I was hoping that I'd be able to, catch people that normally would be working, aren't able to attend the live streams at 10 a.m., and basically just try to help people navigating this crazy world that we call Canadian immigration. Krishiv says, can I simply write it in a letter of explanation? My friend, you were going to find out, because that does land squarely within one of the tips that I'm saying. So those who are tuning in, please give me a shout out, post in your comments. You'll see from the beginning question I had, and I'm just going to flip back to the entry screen. You'll see there, it says, right back again, what is your biggest concern about the express entry system? And everything is open. So post in the comments what your biggest concern is, because we're definitely going to address. I want to tell you guys and teach you guys and share with you guys the things that you want to hear. We've got Victor. He says, hi from Toronto. Great to have you. Moy, great to have you here as well. And with your questions, we will definitely get to those. But I want to start off with just asking a question, okay? And maybe some of you have already experienced this, because I have consultations with people all the time who express this same concern, okay? And this is exactly what it is. Well, I guess what I should say is, have you ever felt like you've done everything right, at least you think you have, only to watch it all fall apart at the last moment? Have you ever felt like that? Where you felt you've spent hours reviewing the guides, the instructions, watching WhatsApp group, messages or whatever. Like you're going to online forums, you're watching my videos, maybe even. You've spent hundreds of hours, and I know some of you have, searching for opportunities, and then your one chance comes. You submit your application, and you are just so ecstatic. And then maybe it's only a month, maybe it's 3 or 4 months later. At the very last minute, when you think you get this notification saying your application is approved, it's rejected. Have you ever felt like that? And I ask that question genuinely because I can't tell you how many consultations I've had with people who have brought this up to me. And it's never big things, you guys. It's always small things that small from the standpoint of people not even thinking they're a big deal, only to realize that IRCC thinks they're a big deal. And you know what? That experience is the exact thing that happened to someone, and I'll create a fictitious name, and I'll give you someone to look at here, and we'll call this person Samir. Okay, this is exactly what happened to Samir, and it can happen to you too if it hasn't already. So let me tell you what happened to Samir. So he came in, he booked a consultation with me, and just like I described, everything was going perfectly. He was on his post-grad work permit. Yes, it was kind of coming to an end, but he got an expression of interest, and he was able to get his nomination. He was able to file his express entry application because it was a PNP express entry stream, and he was so stoked, so excited. Well, the problem for Samir is that right when he thought he was in great shape, and literally just days before he was going to file his extension, because remember, when you file your express entry application, you can file a bridging work permit to bridge the gap. Well, he wasn't sure how long it was going to take to process his application because security screening was a little bit longer for his country. So he waited until I think it was about a week before his postgrad work permit expired to then file the bridging open work permit application. Well, unfortunately for him, he got a notification saying that his PR application, his EAPR, was rejected. Why? Well, I'll be honest, you guys, you can fill in anything you want to fill in here. In his case, it was a police clearance certificate that had not been issued within 6 months. And the problem was he was in that country when it was first issued. So he'd gone back home, he obtained his police clearance certificate, and by the time he'd filed his EAPR, he didn't realize that 7 months had passed. And he thought his police clearance certificate was fine. He didn't notice, and his application got rejected. And that's fine. Normally, if it happens like that, well, maybe you can go back to the province. Maybe you can do it again. You can file another application. But for him, for Samir, here's the problem. The problem was that he did not have time enough to file his bridging open work permit before he got the rejection letter. So his postgrad work permit expired. And at the time, there wasn't an ability to restore to a bridge. So he not only didn't have a postgrad work permit, and when that postgrad work permit expired and he no longer had that status anymore, he was not able to get another nomination from the province because they didn't follow or accept maintained or implied status. And even in his case, he didn't even have it anymore. So he couldn't go back to the province and fix things. And in his case, this simple little error about the police clearance certificate literally caused his application to be rejected. The inability to extend his work permit, and his dream of staying in Canada was over. And there was nothing that I could do, you guys, not a thing. And, and on top of it, I'll add one more little layer, which you guys are starting to see now. In Samir's case, he had an ITA that was granted to him based on the nomination, but the express entry system actually was paused and invitations to apply were not being extended. So even if he was able to get that, even if he was able to get back into the pool, another ITA wasn't coming. And much to my dismay, and that's probably not the right word, when I talked to Samir, I had to tell him those words that nobody likes to hear. Simply this: I'm sorry, you don't get a second chance. All right, well, that was Samir. Well, over the last, 20 years now, I've counseled tons of people like Samir and just like you guys with your express entry applications. In our firm, we don't take over applications, but we fully support you and represent you in every other way. And so I love it when people like Samir come to me in the beginning, and then when I'm reviewing it, I see, wait a minute, buddy, your police clearance certificate has expired. You need to get a new one. And I can't tell you how many times I've had that experience. And when you look at what's happening with Canadian immigration right now, what is this? 1 million people out the door? That's literally 1 million people is what they're shooting for by the end of 2025. Is that you? Are you going to be able to find a way to remain and extend your permit? Or are you going to, at the very last minute, get that invitation to apply? Well, guys, there is never and has never been a time more volatile than this, where you absolutely cannot make a mistake. And so I'm going to share today with you not only this, but a few other problem areas that I want you to avoid. And these problem areas, I guess these tips that I'm going to give you, 3 of them, in fact, I think are game changers. At least they're ones. If you watch out for these, you're going to save the vast majority of problems that you will experience with Express Entry. And I'm also going to share with you this awesome little tool that we've created through the benefits of artificial intelligence, AI, within our Express Entry course. And this little tool that we've developed is going to make the process so easy for you when you're trying to determine your knock code, develop your reference letter, and really probably that's 2 of the most important things of the Express Entry application. But I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Okay, number 1, here's the first thing, you guys. The first thing and the most critical, which I've seen happen, like fall apart over and over. And I'll be honest, I can't figure out why IRCC is so fixated with this. Like, what the heck is the big deal? It's determining your proper knock code. And ultimately, when you've got someone who's worked in a position that kind of crosses over 2 knock codes, like, why is it such a big deal that the person gets the perfect knock code? Well, why? Because it's built into the regulations. And if the ministerial instructions or the eligibility requirements for the Federal Skilled Worker Program or the CEC say that you need to have performed a substantial number of the main duties of the knock, well, the only way they can actually perform that assessment is if you present the right knock, right? And one of the problems that people run into when they're trying to find the right knock is that they look at the education requirements. And lots of people have talked about this in the past, but I can tell you, people don't understand why people screw this up. They screw it up because they have foreign work experience or even work experience in Canada, where the employment requirements say that the person needs to have a particular educational qualification. Maybe they need a Bachelor of Science. Maybe they need a management degree or something like that. Whereas the duties that were performed, they were fully performed. It just in that country or in that location, that education wasn't a big deal. It was only a big deal in the NOC 2021. And so lots of people are just not talking about this, but I want to dispel that myth that the education requirements, the employment requirements are not what is critical about selecting the knock code. It's actually matching those duties. And don't forget the lead statement. And I know lots of people that are attending this are like, come on, Mark, tell us something that we haven't heard before. My goodness, you guys, this is one of the biggest problems because people just gloss over it. They say, yeah. But in the end, the reference letter, even though they know the duties that they performed may be matched, the reference letter is deficient. And one comment that I had right at the beginning, I'm going to pull this up right here if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see. I've got a whole bunch that came in. Oh, right here. I'm going to pull up Krishif. Krishif says, can I simply write it in a letter of explanation? Well, you guys, this letter of explanation in some cases can absolutely help. And I'll talk about this a little bit later. But if you've got a reference letter that's deficient, that is the one thing that's the easiest for an IRCC officer to key in on and then reject the application. All right, I want to tell you another story, and this time we're going to pull up Alvaro, okay? So in this case, Alvaro's application, he had used a consultant to file his application, and he had used the same reference letter, okay? The same one from the very beginning in Brazil when he applied for his first work permit. It was an LMIA-based work permit. Then the same reference letter that he used to get his nomination from the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. He was given an expression of interest under the Express Entry stream, and he used it a 3rd time when he filed his EAPR to the Express Entry system. And guess what happened? Alvaro's application got rejected. Why? Because the refusal letter said that they didn't believe that he'd performed all of the duties required to demonstrate that he had selected the proper knock. And what was the problem? Well, the reference letter had crappy duties. It was very general. There was, oh my goodness, the reference letter was, it had the definition and the duties listed were so general, you guys, that it could have applied to a number of different knock codes. He was in a managerial position. So, the duties just weren't specifically addressing the duties in the knock. Now, generally speaking, and I'll tell you what happened with this, he came to me and he said, what do I do? Like, this is my last hope. I have been in Canada working in this job that he was toughing it out, but he'd put a lot of effort in. The company had put a lot of effort into getting him here. And why would all of a sudden IRCC reject this? So he came to me and we basically filed a reconsideration request. And I'll cut to the chase. I pointed out, I pulled up a whole bunch of other things and I brought them forward and pointed out to the officer that although the reference letter was a little sketchy, it still covered the substance of the duties, and that this was a unsettled area of the law. And if this officer felt that really this reference letter was not good enough, when not just one, but two other government bodies had no problem with it, including IRCC themselves when they filed the original work permit application in Brazil. Well, if they didn't agree that this was a good enough reference letter, well, then we had a problem. And we're going to need to go to federal court to resolve it through judicial review process if they would not reconsider it. And fortunately for Alvaro, I was able to save it. And the reconsideration came back, and they didn't even respond to the reconsideration. They just issued the passport request to him. And so this is an example where, getting that reference letter correct is absolutely critical. And it kind of goes in part, and I'm going to share another story. But before we get there, I want to share something with you guys that is so cool. And I'm actually going to pull it right over here, and I'm going to share this page here. And this you probably recognize as being ChatGPT. But what we have here is what I call the reference letter builder. Now, Igor did a lot of work on this little tool, but this tool that we have embedded in our Express Entry course now is designed to cover two critical things. One, making sure that you've chosen the correct knock, and two, that all the required elements to create a professional letter that meets IRCC requirements is all established in here. And it is trained, it is taught. Is it perfect? Well, I'm sure it's not perfect. You always have to take any of these AI things with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it's smart. And it's smart because we've trained it to be smart. We've told it not to go pushing out hallucinations. But ultimately, this here is the tool. And so you can see how it's trained. I'll just type in one thing. What can you do for me? I'm just going to type this in and let's see what it says. So here's the answer. I specialize in helping you create a polished IRCC compliant employment reference letter tailored to the Express Entry application. I'll guide you step by step to collect all the necessary information, knock code matching, drafting the letter, customizing for accuracy, and finalizing it. And this also helps you to identify that you've got the correct knock code because it double checks and triple checks and gives suggestions, and you can drill down as far as you need with this little tool. So I can tell you that I wish Alvaro had access to this little, or even the consultant who helped Alvaro had access to this reference letter builder so that they were not in the same situation that he found himself in. So that's in the course, in the DIY course. And I'm so excited about it because most of the questions I have, or, when it comes to reference letters, are how do I make sure that I selected the proper knock code? And this little tool is designed to do it for you. Okay, so back to Alvaro's situation. His ended positively, you guys. But many, many people, that imperfection in the reference letter makes all the difference in the world. Now, in his case, his reference letter was complete, okay? Like it had everything in it. It's just that the duties that were listed were kind of weak. I was able to save it, but I think another officer would have potentially made the same change. But now you can imagine for Alvaro in his situation, we were able to save it. But if he had to go back into the pool now, let's say Alvaro received a category-based draw under STEM. Some of you might have done it. And one mistake that caused his application to get returned, if we weren't able to save it, let's say it was something like there were no hours of work listed in the letter. Well, in that situation, if it got returned and it couldn't be saved and he had to go back into the pool, well, guys, there's no more STEM draws. The Liberals, I think officially we can confirm, even though if you go to the category-based draws on the website, it's still listed as an option. I guess theoretically they could do something in December, but it's no longer on the list for the annual levels plans for 2025. So if his CRS score was down in even the 490s, there isn't another general draw coming around anytime soon that's going to dip down in there where he could get another ITA. And these are the consequences that I'm talking about. Okay. The second mistake that I want to dive into, in addition to just messing up the knock code, is the reference letter. We know that the letter itself has very explicit instructions from IRCC on what it must contain. But let's face it, sometimes employers are just sometimes they're jerks, right? Sometimes they're jerks. And so I'm going to pull up another person, Shafali. Okay, obviously I've picked some quite attractive people here to represent all of these clients, and they're all great people, but this is just for reference purposes, a pretty face to look at. The reality is Shafali was working for an employer who had one of those policies where this is the letter that we give, and we're not making any changes to it. Her employer refused to provide the actual required details in the letter, and what happened? Her application was rejected. And the problem is that she didn't understand that just because they didn't give her everything she needed in the reference letter, she could still scratch and claw her way to gather whatever other information she could to fill in those gaps. And in the course, I actually have a very detailed explanation of a whole bunch of other ideas people can use when they don't get a reference letter that's perfect. But in her case, unfortunately for Shafali, this employer had a policy of only giving a very generic letter. She just said, well, she provided a letter of explanation, which is kind of what that question that was asked a little bit previously by Krishiv here. He says, can I just write in a letter of explanation? Well, in some cases you can, but in this case, IRCC doesn't care about self-attested duties or self-declarations of what they did for their work. They want to see exactly proof from external sources. And so in the case of Shafali here, she didn't think that she could add anything else in. And in fairness, it is not a slam dunk when you do. But like I teach in the course, literally there are a bunch of different things that you can pull in to provide evidence. And if you do provide all this other evidence, guess what happens? You then put an officer in a position where it's not so easy for them to refuse. Now, you've attempted and you've provided an explanation for why the letter isn't good, but if you then take that next step and pull in other things, then sometimes you can save deficient letters. But unfortunately for Shafali, she didn't know that. And the same story played out. She came to me and there was nothing that I could do at that stage because she was not getting another ITA. Her opportunity was gone. And it sucks. Like, it really, really sucks. I know. I know you guys are feeling the same way. And so I don't know how many times I can kind of reiterate it. Ultimately, I'll just flip back here. This little sucker can help you. This little tool here, my reference letter builder that I have here, can really help you. You can actually upload a copy of your reference letter and say, how does this look? Right? And it can tell you, here's my reference letter. Does it have everything that it needs? Here's a copy of my reference letter. What knock code do you think this is? So you can ask this little custom GPT, our reference letter builder, these questions, and it can help you. Now, you never, ever want to 100% trust it. If it says, oh, it's knock whatever, and I would do a little example, but if you go into the course, I have a video tutorial on exactly how to do this. And I've demonstrated and shown you all the different ways that you can use it. But it's smart and you can talk to it just like a human. Those of you who have experience with ChatGPT, you know that sometimes it's okay. But if you just go to the general ChatGPT, type, punch in some duties and then say what knock code, oh my goodness, it can hallucinate all kinds of things, right? That are just wrong. And then people rely on that and get their applications rejected. You always want to verify. You always want to double check. But this little guy, man, saves a boatload of time. And I love it. It is so awesome. All right. So back to Shafali. Like I said, her application, unfortunately, out the door, it got rejected. I'm going to pull Shafali off here, and then I want to address the last area, and then we're going to get to a bunch of questions, and I will talk about anything you guys want to talk about. But these three things are super, super important. The last little tip relates to letters of explanation. And if any of you have watched me in the past or heard me talk about this, I always have two separate letters of explanation, okay? And this is something that we go over in depth. There's sample documents. There's tips and templates in the course with drafting your letters of explanation. But the reality is, most applications are rejected for small, little, tiny things. And in the case of, let's pull back here, Shefali, a well-worded, document-specific LOE, that's how I address it. I actually have a letter of explanation that's specifically targeted to whatever document I'm providing. And so if there's deficiencies or problems with that document, I explain everything with that document and upload it together in the document checklist section. Then I have a second one that I call my EAPR information LOE, which covers any of the information that you've put into the online forms. And so those two are they're the most important part of this whole process when you run into situations where you're just not sure to answer a question, or the answer that you're giving, it's going to cause confusion in the mind of an officer. So I want to, and these letters of explanation are designed to make the job as easy as possible for these folks right here. So we'll call this person Tanya, and I can fairly call that person Tanya because I had an awesome employee, Tanya, who cut her teeth in my office as a paralegal, and then she took a job with immigration, and she's now working with the government, and she has been for a number of years. And I really miss Tanya. She's awesome, and I'm glad that she's on the other side. But ultimately, the situation that you guys have to understand is that these officers, like this Tanya here, are under an unbelievable amount of stress. They have such tight timelines, and especially as things have climbed out of the days of COVID and all of that. Now, a lot of them still will work at home or in very, very, tight timeframes in front of a computer where they have to punch through and just pump through a whole bunch of things. So you can imagine, I picture Tanya, holed up kind of in a room in her house where she's got her computer and she's having to work from home, or maybe that's her choice to work from home. And now she's set up to do it, but she's got this small little computer screen and she's trying to assess your application. And you have got documents everywhere. So you've got explanations that are all over the place. You're trying to, you provide these big, long paragraphs of information that Tanya's just like, oh my goodness, like I don't have time to go through all of this. And I can picture her. I can picture her looking at this and saying, look, it's their job to make this clear to me. This document clearly doesn't have what I need it. And so I'm just going to refuse it. Not my problem, so I can move on to the next application. And because of the timelines and the limited, really the limited opportunity they have to really dive deep or spend time reading a lot of things, often officers that are under stress and they're falling behind and they're wondering, how can I keep up with my quota? If there's a quick refusal, well, hey, that instantly reduces their processing time because they process it faster. And it's a whole lot easier, you guys, and faster to process a refusal than it is to process an approval. So individuals, officers like Tanya here, who are under a high degree of stress, are sitting there frustrated by the disorganization in your application and with your attempts at letters of explanation, that literally your job is to make their job easier, but many people just don't. So in my course, I teach people a structure that allows the officer to easily search through, figure out exactly where the problems are, and then identify the correction that you're making or the explanation that you're making in such a way that they look at it and they say, wow, this application is so easy to understand. I see the problem. They've explained the challenge or the issue very, very easily to me. I don't have to waste a lot of time. Approve. And so you guys, that literally is the reason why it is so important to make sure that you have everything organized, everything presented to an officer in a way that it makes Tanya here, her job as easy as possible. And when people don't use letters of explanation, they just throw all the documents in and say, sort it out. Well, you run a huge risk that you are going to lose out on your opportunity and not have a second chance. Remember, officers, they're under stress. They are trying to pump through these applications. They've also been given instructions from on high, and I don't know if we even got Fraser here. No, I can't pull him up. from or Miller. I don't think I can pull them up. No. The actually, let's see, who's this? 1 second here. Oh no, that's Trump. That was another live stream I did. But just to understand, they're under a lot of pressure because they've been told people need to leave Canada. Their goal is to have over 1 million of you gone by next year. And so do not for a minute believe that they're not looking for every opportunity they can to refuse an application. And officers can't just refuse because they don't like you or because they just don't feel like approving. If you give them everything they need and you make it as easy as possible for them to approve, the only option they have is to approve. Remember that. Okay. All right. So here's what I want to do. I want to get to some questions right now. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to pull Tanya off of here. There we go, Tanya, make you disappear. And I want to get to some of your questions. So now please, the very first thing I'd asked, and I'm going to flip back to the entry screen here. What is your biggest concern about the express entry process? And I'm going to sift through here. I see we've got one little super chat. I'll hit this really quick. And Rezada says, is there any chance for a parent-grandparent for someone who is not in the pool right now? Is that a parent-grandparent? They understand if that is parent-grandparent, and you've punched in a super chat, so I'll answer it. They're going to do it. They have to. They're just about through everybody that was in the pool before, so they will do another expression of interest or however they want to do it. I've told them repeatedly it should be a weighted draw, so that every year you're not drawn, you have a greater chance the following year. Most people don't have the luxury of waiting around 5 years or 4 years like they did last time to flush out everybody in their expression of interest pool. So. All right, there we go. Good question. Okay, let's get to some, and this is all about express entry, you guys. Okay. Okay, Victor, we'll start with Victor here. He says, I'm in Canada on a work permit that expires next year and plan to apply for a study permit for a master's. Ugh. Do I still need to show 20K in funds since I already have pay stubs and pay rent here? When you are starting with a new study permit application, officers have discretion. Inside Canada, officers tend to have a little more leeway than overseas visa offices. But when IRCC expressly states that you need to be able to show those funds, then you have to be prepared to show them. And I would never, ever say, no, you don't need to worry about it. Because remember, your situation with a work permit that's expiring, and I don't know if it's an LMIA based or if it was a post-grad based, Victor, but remember, you can only get one post-grad work permit. And so if you go back to school and you've already burned one up, you're not getting another one. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But no, I would never, ever have anything less than the minimum amount that they require. Never. Okay. Krishiv says, if my salary was deposited in bits and pieces, non-uniform way throughout the year, and accordingly evident in bank statements, can it create an issue? Absolutely it can. And guess what you use, my friend? Guess what you use? You use something right here. Whoops, I bumped the wrong one here. My apologies. You use this, if we can pull her up here. Come on, where are you? Right here. There we go. You, my friend, want to use a letter of explanation so that Tanya understands what the heck is going on. And a well-worded letter of explanation can save problem issues like this. It doesn't say that someone has to be paid on regular intervals every month. The regulations don't state that. They do state that a person needs to be paid. And if you have long periods of time where you don't have a salary coming in or some form of a pay stub or pay slip to document that you're being paid, officers have the discretion to say, well, during that period of time, you were unpaid. So it's your job to be able to explain to them exactly how that variation in how you were compensated, how you are still paid, and it was all still reflective of the work that you'd done before. So, all right. Let's get to Global Citizen here, and we'll just pull Tanya off for now. Super nice watching you. I know that the focus will remain health draws for Canada. Absolutely, they're on the list. French is still on the list. Could you advise chance of score dropping to 380 for NOC 32209 herbal health practitioners for PNP? Express entry is, yeah, it's a mess. If you're going straight express entry, I'm not seeing it. Because within healthcare, you're competing against other higher waged, higher skilled, higher human capital folks, and that are younger, right? And I'm assuming part of the reason your score is 380s, you probably lost a lot of age points. And so I don't see that happening anytime soon. Provincial nominee programs might have a little space, but remember, IRCC and our Liberal government, who determine the levels plans, have literally capped. They've literally capped the number of PNPs at 50%, even less than 50% of what they were last year. So I think it's like 55,000 or something versus 110, or 50,000 versus 110. So it's going to become even more competitive for PNPs. And you can see how, if all these people on work permits are all hoping to get PR and the government has reduced the total numbers, well, there's going to be no pathway forward, and they've accomplished exactly what their design was. Okay. All right, let's get to some concerns. So Young Sonic, oh, that's a cool mask. I like that. I guess that's a helmet. My concern is the LMA fraudsters that are taking spots from genuine applicants. Okay, this is where I'm going to ask you guys a favor. That's my concern as well. But do you know what? Nothing will change as long as people remain silent. It does no good to complain about it in the background and not come forward and provide tips to immigration to catch these people. Often it's people you know and you don't want to get them in trouble. Well, the reality is they are absolutely taking spots of people. And that's part of the reason Minister Miller has been toying with the idea of removing job offer points for people with LMIAs. And I don't know, like, I'll be honest, you guys, I don't even know at this stage. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe in order to right the ship and to get rid of all of this corruption that's, it's so frustrating for me. You know, the moment I say anything about crappy representatives, then it's like, oh, you money grubbing lawyer, you know, there are lawyers that are bad too. Hey, I'm talking about crappy representatives. I'm not distinguishing consultants from lawyers. If someone is purely, their sole purpose is to make money, and I saw a TikTok post from another consultant who was talking about filing refugee claims and things like that. And all I can tell you is please go back to our channel. I think you guys have seen our Time's Up series. Let me just flip back here. If you go to our YouTube channel and you go to our videos, you'll see that we have a whole series that's called Time's Up. And Alicia and I just 3 days ago did one entitled When Not to Claim Refugee Status in Canada. But we also did one before, Igor and I, on H&C applications. And then no extensions for post-grad work permits. What are the options? What can you do? We've done one on changing to visitor status, the consequences of that, as well as the high cost of staying in Canada legally. And then it all kicked off by what to do when your work permit is expiring. So if you've not had a chance to go and watch these videos or listen to them on our Canadian Immigration podcast, please do, because they're specifically designed for you to give you the straight goods, the truth, not, you know, these. I have to be really careful what I say, because there's some really good consultants out there that I have the utmost of respect to, but there are so many just that are just taking advantage of you in the most vulnerable position. And I can tell you, if I hear of lawyers that are exploiting or taking advantage of people, there's only one result I want for them, and that is disbarment. Because we, especially as lawyers, have codes of professional conduct. We are officers of the court. We are not to take advantage of people. You know, all of those things are built right into our code of professional conduct. And if I hear of people that are exploiting, and there are out there are some, there's nothing that I love more than reporting them to the law societies. And that's the same for the consultants. The only problem is on the consultant side, the regulator is just doesn't have the ability to deal with it. And sure, there are some people that are caught, but the vast majority are not. And so it emboldens representatives that are garbage to just do this kind of thing for money. It reminds me of something Elon Musk had said, I remember, when people were trying to blackmail him for money. Anyways, I won't repeat it. I try to keep relatively clean language. All right, let's go. I think I've got another super chat that popped in here. Tajpara says, hi, I got my Portal 2 on November 1st and still waiting for e-Coper while my wife Outland got passport stamped and got Coper. Can she travel without my Coper? No, if you're the principal applicant, you have to have yours in place before she can land. She can't land without yours if you are the principal applicant. And so, yeah, it's so bizarre, but different places process at different times, right? Think overseas, how few people now are going through the permanent residence process outside of Canada, the Outlanders. The vast majority are inside Canada. So what happens? Overseas visa offices who are processing dependents are doing so quite a bit faster. All right. Yes. Okay. Let's get to a few more questions here. That was a good one. All right. Next. Okay. Elisa says, what happens if you get an ITA and you are in Canada and your husband is outside, but he is included in the application? Well, that's okay. If you get an invitation to apply, you're going to go forward. I'm assuming that you're still the principal applicant, Elisa. So you're just including them as a dependent on your application, whether they're inside or outside Canada. Now, I don't know the full context here. And I guess one of the things I'll point out to you guys, and it never ceases to amaze me when people book consults and say, do you guys actually represent people? And somehow along with all of this, free direction and advice we give in our DIY courses, people think that we don't actually represent people or help them with their applications or to hire us, which is absolutely not the case. But here, and you can see the Black Friday sale. We've got 4 hours and 15 minutes left. Wow, that's crazy. I can't believe how fast this is disappearing. On our Canadian Immigration Institute site, is there links below? I think there's a link in, if you go to the chat on YouTube, I've got the link there. But anyways, if you just go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, you'll see that the 50% off is alive and well. But going back here, you can see right here, everything just starts by booking a consultation. And we can go through, we can help you through the whole process. You can see here, we've got tons of information on just about everything. Express entry. Yeah, and this actually takes us right here to the video course, which is, I've been talking a lot about that over the last little bit here. We also have a free PDF guide that also talks about other common mistakes that people make. But the ones I shared today are not common in the sense that, these are things that people just don't talk about. Anyways, and this, really check out this download. It is awesome. But you can easily enroll in the class. And if you, I think you've seen here, I closed it off. Let me see if I can refresh it. Let's see if it'll pop it up. Yeah, it will. I can never remember what it is. The code here, Black Friday 50. If you go here and you enroll in the course right now, and this is kind of a larger screen, I'll shrink this down a bit so you can see a little bit better. But when you enroll in the course right now, it's usually $347 US. But if you enter in that code right here, I believe this should work, and apply, yes, it drops the price down to, $173.50. That's because of the tax where I'm at. So it calculates your tax where you're at. Okay. So I just want to point that out to everybody that it's there. And if you need to book a consult, we're here. And I've actually opened my calendar up all through December because I know people are just desperate. And I know, like, every afternoon I have 5 or 6 consultations, and they're all back to back, but that's me and my staff. That's what we're trying to do, help as many people as we can. Okay, let's get back to some more questions here. Okay, and once again, we're talking about what your biggest concern is. Joe says, I felt less of that because I was a bit more confident using the Express Entry Accelerator. Well, there you go. That's true, Joe. And Joe actually is someone who subscribed to it. So thanks, buddy. I appreciate that shout out. All right, let's keep going down here. Young Sonic also says, the negligence of the LMA program will be one of the most damning moments of Canadian immigration that used to be based on meritocracy. I agree. I absolutely agree. And the interesting thing is, back in 2015, when the Conservatives were ousted by the Liberals, the Conservatives had put in a number of measures to protect from this happening. And the Liberal government basically unraveled most of them. Ironically, now they're in the full 180 degree, re-implementing them as quickly as possible. And in order to try to save the election next year. It's sad. Okay, Joe, I'll give you another part here. He says, started working on the company 1 year before graduating, still working here. Should I put the date I started even as a student? Oh, on Express Entry, because it makes me qualified for CEC, but I shouldn't be there. Yeah, don't do that because it will give you credit for it. When I'm putting the work history into the work history section, I only include in there from the time in which, basically when you filed your postgrad work permit, when you can start counting that time. The rest will be included in the personal history. And when you're including your reference letter, Joe, you're going to include a document-specific LOE, which we talk about in the Express Entry course. And that document-specific LOE is basically going to indicate that the reason the reference letter starts with a certain date, or in the case of your work history, you're going to say the reason that the work history is listed only at a certain day, whereas the reference letter includes more, it's because I wasn't eligible to count that work history because I was a full-time student. And I'll just show you guys right here. When you log in to the actual course, and this is what it looks like, you can see I've had so many renditions of the Express Entry course, so many, you guys, because every time it needs to be updated, I recreate the whole thing. Oh, big shout out to Igor here. If you haven't checked out the Canadian Visitor Visa course, that is also available for this Black Friday sale. So make sure you head over there too. All right, the spousal and the study permit one I have not yet revamped. Okay, here's the accelerator right here. All right. Okay, so if you look at the accelerator, one thing I want to point out, not only does it have, oh my goodness, we've got 70 lessons now. Yeah, we do. You can see in here, we have a whole bunch of things, case scenarios. This introductory lesson, even in and of itself, is worth every penny of the course. But determining your eligibility, FSW, CEC, I don't even bother with the federal skilled trade anymore because they just don't do those draws. But you can see here, there's a whole section on setting up your profile. And I'll be honest, this module 3 is probably one of the most important sections within the course, because here's another problem that a lot of people run into when they're doing this. And Joe would have learned this as he took the course. Sometimes people will be a little bit casual when they're entering their information in for their Express Entry profile, and then they get an ITA and didn't expect it. And then guess what happens? Then they're stuck because maybe they've made a mistake in their profile and they have to make a change. Well, does that change affect the A11.2 assessment, the completeness check assessment? Does the change that they have to make in their EAPR, would it have caused them to fall below the level that they required to meet the eligibility, like Joe has talked about here with the CEC, or to fall below the pass mark for the round of invitations with the CRS points? If either of those is yes, then an officer will refuse it, and they have full right to do it. And we talk about all of that in the course, but yeah, Joe, that's how I would deal with it. If I flip back here to the course and just show you a couple things here. So we've got module 3 here is all about completing your Express Entry profile. Module 4 is all about the EAPR after you get it. And obviously, you know, the contact details section and the personal history section both have substantially more information asked about travel history, your work, your personal history, and then your address information. But what I want to show you guys is module 6, which is the one that I'm the most proud of. And you will see here now we have the records of employment lesson, which is just chock full of everything that you could possibly need. At least that's the way it was. You can see all the sample reference letters, all these other tools that I have, all designed to help you navigate your way through it. What if I can't get a reference letter? We talked about that, all those things. But the really cool part now, if I go back here, is that now I have the custom GPT to assist with drafting reference letters. And so this custom GPT right here, I've got a video, 15-minute video on how to optimize it. And I've got a bunch of other information just talking about, you know, how I go about the process of utilizing this and getting the most out of it so that it makes your job easy, right? That's the whole object with this whole course, is that you're not spending hundreds of hours searching all through the internet, not knowing what you can trust and what you can't, you know, how old the information is. And what worked maybe last year doesn't work anymore. That's what people don't understand, especially when people have outdated websites where they have information and tips and strategies that's outdated. And then people follow it and then they fall out of status. Okay, let's do a couple more here. Yeah, Moy says, that's amazing. Congratulations to Alvaro. I'm going to pull up Alvaro. Alvaro actually, I think he might live in Lethbridge right now where I live. And yeah, he was just working for a small little business and his options were done and it worked out for him. But I can tell you guys that situation for Alvaro there is unbelievably rare It just doesn't happen where I can fix things with a reconsideration. It was only because there was just enough in the reference letter. And I don't believe that if the original work permit application in Brazil, if they hadn't used the exact wording in the letter and gotten it approved, I don't think I would have been successful, because that was my argument. How can you say that one IRCC officer is fine and another says it's fine, and then you say it's not enough when you work for the same department? Maybe there was an argument that, hey, one officer isn't just, their discretion isn't fettered by another. But regardless, Alvaro, super, super happy. But for Samir here and for Shafali, not so good. Not so good at all. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Bedri says, dear consultant. And I think the consultants might be offended if I lump myself in with consultants too, because I haven't gone through their certification process to become a consultant. I am an immigration lawyer. And when it comes to documents must be within 6 months, it's not as simple as that. So in the course, in the police clearance section, and I'm actually going to flip over and I'll just show you quick here, within mastering your documents, this mastering your documents section, I have topics for everything: passports, medicals, police certificates. Within the police certificates, not only do I explain and break down what you absolutely need to have, but you can see I've got a ton of samples in here too, just to make sure that the ones you have are consistent and they're accurate. But for your purposes, Bedri, police clearance certificates expire after 6 months if they were issued from the country you were at or residing in, at the time in which it was issued. So if you were, let's say, in India and you got your police clearance obtained, and then you traveled to Canada and 6 months passed, and then you submitted your application, like Samir, I think it was, that if it's older than 6 months, then IRCC will reject it. However, if you're in Canada and you obtained your police clearance certificate from India from here, and you never returned back to India since it was issued, then that police clearance certificate does not expire after 6 months. So, but I get through all of that in the course. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I'll try to get to a bunch of different people. Moise is really enjoying these characters. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay, Udara, let's just see here. Okay, let's tackle Udara's here. So Udara says, hi, Mark, can I do a distance learning course part-time in another country while working on an open work permit and claim points for both CEC and points for that course under education at the same time? Yes, you can, Udara. If that course of study is outside of Canada, then you're not a full-time student. And I'd pull up the regulations, right? Because the regulations specifically state that you can't claim points while you are in full-time student status, but that is in Canada. So if you're doing a part-time course, distance learning outside of Canada, you're not restricted, and you can still count those points if you're on an open work permit. Yeah, that's a great question, Udara. I don't know if I've had anyone who's asked that, to be honest. And boy, I've been doing this for a long time. The first podcast episode was actually in the end of 2015. That's when it started, and I started answering these questions. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's see here. Okay, we'll get to this one. Is Arshnor. He says, I'm planning to go to my home country for about 2 to 3 weeks in February. I only have about 40 hours of accumulated paid vacation. Oh, that's not very far. That's not a lot, is it? Okay. So Arshnor says, is it safe to move forward with this step considering I'm in the middle of collecting tier 2 work experience? Arshnor, the only thing I can do, my friend, let's see if I can find it here. The only thing I can do for you is click that bell. And I can never give anyone direct advice, legal advice, like you're asking in the context of a live stream like this. I just can't. It would be not only against my code of professional conduct, but it would be reckless because I need a whole lot more information. I'm going to encourage you to slide over and click on book a consult, and you can book with any of the lawyers, Alicia, myself, Igor, all three of us. We'd be happy to work with you. And it's super easy. You just go here, click on the consult link. It pulls up our calendar. You can see I've got time. Monday is full. It's chock full, but I do still have spots on Tuesday. And you can see I've got some afternoon spots that are still available. So go check that out. And I highly recommend that you consider booking a consult, and then we can really get to the crux of it and the consequences if you did choose to go back. All right. Let's see what else here. Okay, Mountain Revenue says Express Entry Profile expires on April 15th, 2024. On April 9th, 2025, my CRS points will increase from 502 to 512. Yep. So you got 502 to 512, 10 points. Postgrad expires on June 2025. Should I withdraw the profile, let it expire before creating a new one? Oh man, this is another one, you guys. When it comes to being drawn, the one risk you have if you withdraw a profile and start a new one is that if there is a tiebreaker, in other words, they say the score is, let's go with 512, which is one that you've indicated there. If there was a round of invitations and you had withdrawn your profile, resubmitted it, and then got your 512, and then received, and then they did a round of invitation that was right at 512, well, at that stage, it's possible that someone who's had their profile in the pool longer than you, if they had a cutoff at that person, you could still be at 512 and not receive an ITA. That's how it works. But the likelihood of that happening is quite rare. So the question really becomes, how fast can you resubmit a new profile, right? That's what it comes down to. And I often am reluctant to have people pull their profile early in order to submit another one, because the difference really, in my mind, it isn't a significant advantage. But Mountain Revenue, I can't tell you or give you specific legal advice on what to do for yourself, but those are some of the factors that I look at when I'm trying to sort this out. Okay. Elisa says, Mark, if I buy the course, how long can I access it? Because with my points, I'm far away from an ITA. This is the thing, and I've had a lot of people ask these questions. I am shifting to a cohort model where the people who purchase during a certain window are all grouped together. I find that people are then more often in the same kind of stage, and so the questions can be really specific to them. But with that being said, I haven't yet instituted that. It's what we're looking to do in January. So with this course, when people subscribe to the course here, I'll just pull it up so you can see. And if I'm going to go to enroll now, let's see if I can pull it up. Hopefully it takes me here. Which one does it? Oh, that's the pay portal. Let's see if I can find the actual. Okay, so yeah, this is the whole Express Entry Accelerator. So what you'll see here is anyone who's purchased this course, and it's interesting because if I went back and looked at all of the other courses that I have, anyone who purchased a course, even in 2016, still gets access to all the future updates. So if I was to recreate this one, and I haven't quite decided whether or not I'm going to revise the whole, like update it for 2025 in the sense that I would record all new videos. I haven't quite decided. I don't think I need to at this stage. I always update individual videos, but to refresh the whole thing, usually I do that every other year. But the reality is if you purchase the course in 2016, you would have access to all the future updates. And that's the same for you, Elisa. And so it's so much better if people take advantage of it now. And obviously the regular rate is $347. And right now with the Black Friday sale, it's 50% of that, which is a substantial savings. And just to reiterate here, in addition to having access to the course, look, bi-weekly on Wednesdays from 4 to 6, roughly around that time, I do a masterclass that I run where you come and you get your questions answered. It's different than this. It's in the same way, kind of like a Zoom call. And we do it in our own Kajabi kind of community environment. If people can't make the call, they can post questions in the group and then I answer them in the next call, or people can post them in the chat. Or if I need clarification, I just say, hey, turn your camera on and your mic on and just, can you explain this for me a little bit more? And I get way more specific in there than I can ever do here in these live sessions. So those of you who wish to subscribe, this is by far the time to do it. Now this says 2 days. I don't know why this says 2 days. This shouldn't. I have to talk to Igor here. Technically, we're going to include it past Cyber Monday, but I think this isn't actually accurate. I think because I'll show you, if you go back to our firm website here, let's go to Health Immigration Law. you can see here, it's 3 hours, 57 minutes and 32, which is basically midnight. So this is the one that I would trust, you guys. And I have to talk to Igor. I know he's got some friends over. He was going to join me, but he had some friends over tonight. And I don't make my staff work on Sundays. I might do this crazy stuff, but I don't make him. So yeah, I don't actually trust this. I think this is a little bit off, at least for the sale. So this may very well be, oh, do you know what? Oh, sorry. That's right. My mistake. I forgot that we updated this. This is when the next Express Entry Masterclass begins. It's on Wednesday. That's why. Yep. So that's when our next Express Entry Masterclass is going to start. 2 days, 19 hours. So that's why. Now I get it. Now I understand why. Yep. Because the cart closes this evening. So, all right, let's get to some more questions. So yeah, Lisa, I hope you purchase it and you'll get access for life. Anyone who purchases it gets access for life. As we roll over to the new cohort, people won't have unlimited access to the calls. I'm finding that the calls are just so broad that I'm not able to drill down as deep as I usually am. And I, when I had these cohorts before, and that's how I did it. And I think Joe, I don't know if Joe subscribed when I used to do those in private Facebook groups, but yes, so stay tuned for that. But now is definitely the time to subscribe. Okay. Let's get to Rashab here. It says, claimed 50 points for arranged employment. Portal 2 details uploaded. Got terminated. I don't have a sad. I don't think I have a sad one. Let's see. That's kind of like a scary bell. Actually, here, I do have something for you. I do, right here. There we go. I do have some sound effects. So Rushab says it claimed 50 points for arranged employment. Portal 2 details uploaded. Got terminated while waiting for eCoper. Can IRCC know about job change and chances to get rejected now? The chances of getting rejected are astronomically high, Rashab. He says, I have vacation plans soon. Is it risky to go out of country without eCoper and come back and get in? Your issue, my friend, is this. Because you have an obligation to notify them that you've lost your job when you no longer have that arranged offer of employment. Remember, the 50 points is available because your employer has told IRCC that they will have a position open for you for at least 1 year after you become a permanent resident. And if they've already laid you off, my friend, then you are going to lose those 50 points. You don't ever want to be in a position where you're trying to conceal it or hide it. I strongly encourage that you book a consult and we can go over this and take a look at it and see what can be done, if anything, to try to save this. But no, you can't just hope they don't find out. You don't want to do that, because that could be considered misrepresentation by omission, and it could result in you getting a 5-year bar from Canada. Okay, Vinny says, hey, Mark, is it true that CEC applications are processed in Canada and FSW by visa offices? Not necessarily. Generally speaking, FSW applications may be processed at visa offices abroad because they have more capacity right now. But there was a time when some overseas applications were being processed in Ottawa. So it's not a hard and fast rule. And in fact, some CEC applications, they have the ability to move all throughout the global network and have offices all over process express entry applications. So it's not a hard and fast rule by no means, but if they are assessing work history and things like that, and there's a visa office in your country, then sometimes they're in a better position to be able to determine if your work history or the supporting documents from that country are genuine, then someone may be in Canada, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Good question though. Okay. Let's see here. Anurag says, hi, Mark. I wanted to say a big thank you for all the videos. It helped me to get the PR without hiring an agent. My CRS was 539. Oh, there's some applause. Thank you so much, Anurag. I'm so glad that this has been helpful to you. Okay. Let's see. I think I got yours, Tashpara. I got your super chat. And okay, here we go. And I really appreciate you guys focusing on express entry. Our live Q&As cover everything, and it's really hard to kind of stay focused when we're bouncing about, all over the place. But as you can see from our law firm, no matter what you guys have in terms of needing assistance, we assist everything, including, refusals and delays, judicial reviews, H&C applications. We do everything. The only thing that we don't do is asylum or refugee. But if you're wondering, should I do it? Or I've got someone who says I should file, by all means, book a consult and we can help you to sort that out. And remember, I'll also go back here. Remember, Alicia and I, if you have not yet watched it, when not to claim refugee status in Canada is so much more than just when not to. And I also want to point out on our firm website, we have our blog. So if you have not yet checked this out, absolutely do, because you can do a search here in the menu bar, but we have all of our Time's Up series all here. And we cover a wide variety of things. And most of the videos that we do are, have their foundation in blog posts that we write. So make sure that you go and check these out. Often there's more detailed information in the blog post than maybe we cover in the live stream, but it's just one more example of how we're trying to get information out to people, especially in these crazy, crazy times. All right, let's see what else here. Maria says, how much information should we provide to prove work experience, considering that there's limited space given to upload a document? Okay, you're going to provide as much information as you need when you're proving work experience. The 4 megabyte rule is just for that one particular file. Now, ultimately, what I include and what I teach in my course is the importance of having those extra supporting documents to bolster a reference letter. And reference letters themselves, if you look at the instructions in that little radio button when you've got your personal document checklist, you'll see that when you click on it, it says reference letters, and then it gives instructions. And, it says, and pay slips or pay stubs if available. Well, I can tell you guys, in every case, do I include pay slips and pay stubs? Absolutely, I do. And I go even further than that if I feel I need to, depending upon the circumstances of a client. One thing I don't do, and this is something I'm going to pull up Tanya because I talked to Tanya. One thing I don't want to do for immigration officers like Tanya here is make them read through a whole bunch of garbage that's not necessary. So although there is superpowers that exist within, let's see if I can find where I was at. Maybe I lost it. Okay. Even though there are superpowers involved in, if I go to mastering my document section here and I scroll down, you can see there's not only 1, but 2 pages of documents. This section on letters of explanation has a ton of tips, strategies, templates, sample, LOEs, how I structure it, exactly the way I believe officers want to see the information. But when it comes to, utilizing the space available, I use it if I need it, but I don't waste time putting things in that I don't need to. So if I don't need to explain anything about a police clearance certificate, I don't put a cover letter or a letter of explanation with it. I just submit it. If my reference letter is good and I know it's solid and it's easy for an officer to understand, reference letters are different because I also include something that I call my Knox selection tool. And it's also in the course samples on how I structure it. And I've seen other people out there who have taken that idea and ran with it. And it's a good one. I think I was one of the first people, if not the first person to invent it. But it's basically just demonstrates to an officer exactly how you've selected the right knock code and why you've chosen the right one. It's all designed to make Tanya right here, her job as easy as possible. That's what you're doing. All right, boy, we're past a little bit further than I wanted to go, but it seems like there's still people around that want to learn more. So I'll keep going through the questions and just reiterate again that this is all designed to help you guys with your express entry process and avoid those pitfalls that we talked about before. It's interesting. You can go online, right? And I think lots of people, here's one thing. I got an email from someone, maybe they're watching, and they were complaining that the little TRV letter, what's it called? The letter of intent or the invitation letter for temporary resident visas. Igor created a little tool. We charged $10 for it. And it was just a consolidation of everything so that people could see in one place exactly what they needed to do. It didn't have samples or anything in it, but it was like $10. Well, someone came back and they sent a very unkind email that said that they were really disappointed and it wasn't worth anything. And that's all fine and dandy. And generally speaking, when you go online, you can search the whole internet to find information. Often you're not sure who you can trust. But I want to tell you a little story. Yeah, I've been saving this one as we get kind of late in the day here. Okay, does anybody know what this is? You should be able to figure it out, but this is a question to see who's still asleep. And of the, just about 400 people watching live, I want you to tell me. Spider-Man here. Hi from Montreal. Mark is working extra hours again. I am. That's the story of my life, my friends. My son's just headed back to Idaho this morning. My daughter's on a mission she's in Regina. Those of you in Saskatchewan, that's where my daughter Michaela is serving her mission. She's in Regina. So if you see her, a cute little girl with a black name tag that says Sister Holthy, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, make sure you say hi for me if you're in Regina. But anyways, she's gone and my eldest daughter is married. And so it's just me and my wife. So, Sorry. Sometimes I get a little emotional about this stuff. I'm just going to get a drink here. What I wanted to say is that, people can say all kinds of things online, but the reality is you guys are like family to me. And especially people like Spider-Man, who's been, battling this fight for a long time, trying to get PR. And anyways, yeah. So in short, you guys are like family to me. Okay, so here's the answers. We've got them here. Sprinkler. Yes, indeed. Maria's got the sprinkler. Faith has got the yard sprinkler. Indeed. So let me tell you a story. Okay. So here's what happened. Here's what happened. This is funny. Song says, have you seen Book of Mormon, the musical? Man Song, I lived Book of Mormon, the musical. I was a missionary, although they took some quite literary license to make it a little bit funner. But anyways, that's hilarious though. No, I haven't actually seen it because I lived it. Anyways, and so I served my mission in Portugal years ago, a long time ago. That's where I learned to speak Portuguese. Anyways, so back to the sprinklers here. Mountain Revenue says, "Oh, you're a good dad." Okay, so back to the story here. I'm just going to shrink my little sprinkler down just a little bit here, so I don't have to lean sideways and you can still see me. Okay, so here's the story. This is a perfect story. So in Canada, what happens another question for you guys? What happens in the winter? What happens to these underground sprinkler systems if water is left in those underground pipes? What happens to these pipes in the winter in Canada if water is left in the pipes? So let's see who can answer that one. And Spider-Man, I promised to arrange a trip to meet Mark in person if and once I got my PR. Absolutely, my friend. In fact, we need to have a big alumni party is what we need to have. I've helped thousands of people with their Express Entry applications. Literally thousands, you guys. And so I don't think anyone has had a greater influence over Express Entry than I have with all of the different ways in which I've been supporting people. But back to the question. There we go. Thank you, Andrew. Big shout out for Andrew. I was afraid I'd have to wait a while. So as we know, and as Andrew knows here, and we've got some other ones, pipes burst, pipes burst. Good job, guys. Okay, yes, thank you very much. So, oh yeah, we got all the answers now. Thank you, guys. They explode and leak, the water freezes and the pipe bursts. That's right, Xiongwu. So basically, guess what happened to Mark? My wife says in the fall, hey, Mark, you should get those sprinklers and blow the water out. So you basically attach high pressure an air compressor, and you blow the water all out so that the pipes don't break. Well, my wife says, Mark, you need to blow it out before it gets too cold. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. Mark didn't get to it. So come spring, I'm like, maybe they didn't break. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I was able to make it through. It was kind of a mild winter. And yeah, guess what happens? Turn the sprinklers on. Water dribbles out the end. There's no pressure coming out of there. Why? because the pipe broke. So I had to go in and tell my wife when she's wondering why our grass is starting to dry out in the early summer. And I'm like, I turned the sprinklers on, honey, but the pipe broke. And she's like, you know what she told me? I told you so. Go get that fixed. Just hire someone to come and fix it. What? I'm a farm kid. I ran irrigation on our crops. I ran wheel move, our hand move pipes. I had to fix risers. I had to fix mainland pipe. I know how to do irrigation. Seriously, these little irrigation pipe, I can fix this. And she says, just hire someone so that it can get done. You're too busy. Well, I said, no, I've got time. So guess what happens? And I'll really speed this story up. You know what happened. The time came. It was, I'd say probably about 3 weeks later. I'd promised her we'd get it done before we went away on this trip for 3 days. Well, unfortunately for me, I didn't get it done. And so I went out, made sure that the water outside to those sprinklers was turned off. Okay. Because if I had it turned on, then the water would just run and flood everywhere. Well, 2 days into our trip, I get a call from one of my kids. And they said that there was someone from the city that came over and they had said that our backyard was flooding. I'm like, what? How's that even possible? And I guess after talking with my kids, our hot tub that we have in the back of our house, they needed to put more water in it. So they turned the tap on, which then flooded all of the underground sprinklers and they didn't know about it. They filled up the hot tub, but the water just kept running for like a day and a half. And it was when my neighbor's backyard started to flood that they called the city, sent someone over to come take a look. And lo and behold, they figured it out. He turned the water off, but I had a water bill that was over $1,000 that month. Okay, so let's keep cruising forward with the story. My wife says, Mark, why in the world did you just not hire a professional? Well, I did. And then guess what happens? They came, fixed it, and it cost me a whole lot more money than if I had just hired someone in the beginning to fix all of the problems. And not only that, one of my big kind of ponderosa pine trees in the backyard, the tree just started leaning over because the water was so waterlogged that when the wind blew against it, it literally stretched the roots. Like, it was so bizarre. That's what happens when you flood it. And so the tree literally is leaning now, and the poor needles, it's never been the same. It's got a few little green ones, lots of dead ones, and I'm going to have to remove it too, which is devastating because it's been growing for like 14 years in our backyard. So long story short, you guys, sometimes you can do things yourself. And if you spend enough time and you go online and you search everywhere for answers to your express entry questions, you can figure it out. You can. But the reality is, for me, I learned the lesson the hard way that sometimes it's better to just hire a professional to get it done right the first time. And that's, I guess, one of the common themes that exists with everything I'm talking about today. You know, there are little things that people just don't catch that only come up when you know what to look for. And that's what's contained in the course. That's why I created it, because I know a lot of you, you may not have the resources to hire me. I charge $5,000 to assist with an express entry application. Now, it's not $5,000 that then I give you a form, you fill it out, and my paralegal is the only person you talk to. We, Alicia, Igor, and I, we are the only people that you deal with when it comes to your application. We literally teach you everything we know. We forensically review everything. We even help you to upload and submit the documents together via Zoom screen share. And I would hold up that process against any representative out there. No one can touch how accurate those applications are when both you and I are looking at it at the same time and we're doing these multiple forensic reviews. That's a separate discussion, but you can absolutely hire us if you say, man, Mark, I just want to hire you in your firm. You can just go book a consult and we can do it. But for the vast majority of you, that's why I created the DIY course. That's why it's into like its 4th or 5th edition. It's because I wanted to give an option for people so that they didn't have to go to some representative that they didn't trust or rely on some information online that they just didn't know how old it was or whether it could be trusted. And I can't tell you how many consults I had with people who relied on something they saw online or some person who said, oh, I did it myself. It got approved. I know everything there is to know. It's so easy. You don't need to hire anyone else. And then they follow those instructions, get their application rejected because that person actually did something wrong, but the officer didn't catch it. And then where is that person when, those who are relying on them for advice, when they get their applications rejected, they're nowhere, right? There's no recourse. So that's why I do what I do. All right. Chaitanya, hey, my friend. Marcus Creighton, I agree with him. He cares and actually wants the best for you. Nothing is free in the world, but Mark's legal fees is worth it. Something you can only find out when you do it yourself. Thanks, my friend. That is so kind. So good to see you, my friend. I hope things are going well for you. One of the happy clients that I've had in the past. GC says, thank you for tips and advice back in COVID. I got my TR to PR because of you. Thanks. That was so awesome, GC. That was back when I was the national chair of the Canadian Bar Association's immigration section. I think there was myself and one other person that saw the TR to PR pathway portal and how it was going to work. I knew the person who ran the program very well at the time, and I basically shared everything I knew. Unlike, I guess, others that would kind of hoard things. Let's see here. I'm gonna kind of ask, get to a bunch of other questions. I see our numbers have actually increased even more than we had before. So I'm just gonna answer a few more questions here. If you guys are here, I'll stay and I'll answer questions. So Andrew says, hello. To increase public confidence in the immigration process, do you think the next government can build on what the current government has done lately, or do they have to begin from scratch and reform? They never, ever start from scratch. Whenever a new government comes in, and I've seen it, I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 different government changes, liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative. If the Conservatives get elected next year, I'll be honest, I hope they do. If the Conservatives get elected next year, they're not just going to scrap everything and start from scratch. However, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act needs to be redone. I started my practice in 2002 when that act was released. I was actually an officer working on the border, the Canada border, as an immigration officer at the time. They didn't have the Canada Border Service Agency, but I was there in 2002 working on the border when that new legislation was created, which is so goofy now when I think new. That's like 22 years ago. It needs to be overhauled. It needs to be updated. And so I could see the Conservatives maybe considering that, tackling on reforms, but they're not going to do anything quick. And I'll be honest, I never would have dreamed that the Liberals would have done what they did. I never would have. This would have been something Conservatives would have considered, right? But the Liberals are doing all the dirty work of the Conservatives, all in hopes that they can regain the public confidence and get reelected again, or at least have another minority government propped up by the NDP. But yeah, it's just, no, I don't think they're going to redo everything. Yeah. And Parallel Plane says, international students applying as refugees, really shocking. I agree. There are very, very few international students that will be eligible to claim refugee status. There are some, without a doubt. There are some that might be able to do that for legitimate, genuine reasons. But the vast majority, they are not in a position where they would be considered a genuine refugee. And that's some of the things that Alicia and I talk about in our post. And I'm not anti-asylum. I'm not anti-refugees. I just know that the consequences of doing it, when the likelihood of getting rejected is so high. And I'm not even talking about the crooked, evil people who counsel lying in making up fake basis of claim forms and making up stories. Yeah, it's just horrible. Let's see here. I see this here. It's got me kind of curious. Ask me how I know, Mr. Rezada. Let me just see if I can pull up. I've got so many comments coming in. Oh yes, imagine February. That's what I call the Feb 13ers. So in February 2021, we had a draw of CEC with the minimum points of 76. I think it was 75, was it not? I think it was 75. That was absolutely insane. It was so crazy. And those of you guys, I'll show you what Rezada is talking about here. So if we go here and I'll just pull up, this man, are they going to do another draw, these guys? I don't know. Healthcare, 3,000. Okay, if we go previous rounds, you can actually sort this. So let's go with Canadian. And then let's sort it this way. Okay, so you can see 27,332 people were issued an invitation, and the lowest score was 75. Just to put that in context, you guys, you didn't even have to have high school education to be eligible at 75 points. In fact, I think I did videos on this, and I think you could still qualify for the Federal Skilled Worker Program or CEC, maybe CEC alone, with as little as, I think it was 69 points or 67 points. So yeah, but every single person that was in the pool who was eligible under CEC was given an invitation. Boy, how the times have turned. And I was, at that time, I think I was the chair. I think 2021, I was the national chair that year. And we had discussed with Minister Mendicino, we'd given him a list of things that they could do to try to continue meeting their levels targets. And number 2 on our list was to increase the CECs. We had no idea he was going to do that. I had in-person meetings with him during that time, quite entertaining. Well, not in person; they were Zoom meetings that we did back then, or Teams, or whatever it was. So, yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Rizada. That's crazy times. Okay, let me get to just a few more questions and then we'll wrap up. I just want to remind everybody once again that our time is very quickly disappearing, and our Black Friday sale right here, you can see. I think I've got it in the chat. I'm pretty sure I've put it in there. Did I even put it in? Let me see. I'm just going to go back here and take a look at our live here and see. Maybe somebody can post the link if people are wondering how to get to it. I didn't even think about it when I was doing the video. I'm so focused on, I've got, I'll pause that. Let's see here. Okay, it looks like it'll come up after. So in here, if you go, let's see, I'll go right here. Expenditure, I'll just copy this and then I will go in and drop it in for those who are wondering. I'm just going to drop it right in the chat right here, there. And yeah, once this video is over, then I'll post it. But all you have to do is go to the Canadian Immigration Institute website and you can get access to it. And yeah, it's 50% off for the Black Friday kind of sale, and it's going to end tonight. So if you haven't subscribed, do so. Okay. Oh yes, Chaitanya says coming soon for citizenship applications. Working in retail in December throughout the country doesn't help. Swamped with amounts of things to do. Got it. Happy to help you, Chaitanya. Happy to help you, my friend. It'd be our pleasure. And yes, we do citizenship applications. We do everything. Okay. Okay, this is from Ahmed. Hi, can non-accompanying spouse status change to accompanying spouse after passport request, FSW Outland PR application? Ahmed, at any point in time, if you have listed your spouse as non-accompanying and then you try to add them in before you land, at any time, IRCC, the moment you say, hey, I want to add my spouse, they will reassess your CRS score and they'll reassess your eligibility. And if your CRS score is below the round of invitation level, when you add your spouse in, which is often the case, your whole PR application can be unraveled. So I'm going to tell you, like other people, book a consult and we can talk through this. Do not make a decision like that without seeking legal advice. It can literally unravel your whole application. Okay, Samuel says, hey, Mark, I'm about to apply my PR through PNP non-express entry, okay, as I'm still waiting for the results of my postgrad work permit. My concern is what should, if in case my postgrad got refused or my postgrad result or with conditions. Well, see, that's the thing, Samuel. Like all of those things could create potential realities. You know, when you're applying for your PR through the PR portal, which would be the case for your non-express entry, there are certain factors with that, you know, with the PNP nomination that require you to continue working in most cases. And so that can be a huge issue, but it depends. Did they issue an R204C letter? Were there other factors involved? And if you say that you're still waiting for the result of your postgrad work permit, well, you know, I don't know if, you know, to what extent or how you got your PNP nomination, you know, before you got your postgrad work permit. Maybe there's, like, I need a whole lot more information, I guess is what I'm saying, Samuel. So I just encourage you to book a consult. We can chat about that. Okay. Anne says, hi, Mark, non-express application in progress. Okay. ONP Masters, eligibility passed, postgrad now. Can a person change jobs? This is another one. I'm going to triangle it. This is outside of express entry, so kind of outside of the group. If yes, is there a need to inform IRCC about job change and submit a new Schedule A also? As far as the Schedule A, you don't necessarily need to do that, but any change, it specifically requires that you do if your OINP is based on any type of job offer. If you're going through the master's program, you still have an obligation to notify them that you're changing positions, but I'd need to know more about your application to know whether or not there'd be an actual implication for it. Let's see what else we have here. I'm just going to try to focus on express entry questions because I see there's a bunch of people that are asking non-express entry ones. Okay, Victor says, do you see a scenario in 2025 where CEC draws don't drop to 505, given that Canada needs 82K applicants? Is it possible to achieve that with draws above 505? Well, I think that there is a possibility that it could drop down that far. It could with CEC. As you've very astutely been aware, the actual number of express entry spots is actually going up in 2025. But the PNPs are the ones that are taking the big hit. So there's a marginal increase. So it is possible. It just depends. And how would it happen, Victor? They just do a couple big, massive draws at the beginning. If they were to do 3 big draws in a row at the beginning of the year, that are all CEC, then those points will drop down. It could drop down below 500 if they were to do that. Let's say they were to do 5, or even 3 5,000, people draw, which they've done in the past. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Walter, you're very welcome. I just want to say thank you. I wish I met your channel before. Well, I wish you guys would share this with other people. I don't pay anything for marketing. We just produce content and hope that people will like it and share, right? So that's one thing that I would ask, is that you guys subscribe to the channel and let other people know. And that's the best thing you could ever do, or thanks for what we do here, is just to share. We as a law firm, Holthe Immigration Law, we represent people with their immigration applications. We go to federal court if we need to. We do mandamus applications if we need to. We do all of those things if you need help. We're a full service immigration firm. We do tons of business immigration, work permits for multinational companies, intercompany transfers, reciprocal work permits, the dreaded LMIAs. We do a lot of those. So any of those things we're able to assist people with. All right. Okay, Great Dan. I wonder if that's Great Dane. That'd be good. Great Dan says, can a closed work permit holder work for an employer outside Canada? Well, you can work for anyone outside Canada without a work permit because they're not in Canada. Now, I don't want to be too general in this. I don't want to, I don't want to miss something because that's such an open question, but I'll just qualify it. If the employer is all outside Canada and you are being paid outside Canada, there's no entry into the Canadian labor market, right? And if you're not entering the Canadian labor market, it's like a digital nomad, which the government has said, hey, come stay and visit in Canada. It's no different. And work as a digital nomad for 6 months, right? Okay, let's see what else we have here. And thank you all for your very, very kind comments. Global Citizen says, by the way, your 30-minute video has given me more info than tons of hours I've put in, sir. You're a well-meaning man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see if we go back here. We'll hit a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Let's see if there's any others. Usually I have Igor or someone helping to screen, so I apologize for taking so much time to go through them. And remember, we're just getting express entry questions today. Okay, let's try this here. Okay, Bedri says, yeah, thank you, dear lawyer. I live in Canada. I'm an expert telecoms engineer, but I'm 36. Yeah, age, right? That's the problem, which fails my CRS points. If they cut LMI points, I'll go the UAE, US, but scammers will pay NOC codes and stay in Canada. I know. It just breaks my heart. I wish every single scammer, and the people that choose to pay are just as guilty. If you choose to pay for them and to buy them, there wouldn't be a market unless people are willing to pay. And so I don't see them as innocent victims, people who actually pay for a job offer. I think in the same light that the person who's selling it, if they're Canadian, should be thrown in jail. If they're a permanent resident, they should be have their PR stripped and sent back to the country that they came from. That's what I believe about anyone who scams, and anyone who purchases or enters into the fraud. They should lose their opportunity to stay in Canada as well, because it's not fair to the people who are trying to do it right. No way. Dennis, is that you, my friend? Oh, Dennis Wycliffe. Oh, do you know what, Dennis? Do you remember that temple that you carved for our family? My son Adam has it down with him at BYU, Idaho. And so knowledgeable, Mark, very grateful for you. Oh, that just made my day, Dennis. It's so nice to hear from you. But yeah, do you remember that? I don't know if you're still watching, Dennis, but yeah, Dennis carved this beautiful temple. I think it's the Cardston Temple for a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is our church. And yeah, he had given that to me as a gift. I think I'd helped with your spousal sponsorship, right, Dennis? But Adam still has that, and he's kept it and keeps it in his room down at BYU. So yeah, so kind. Thank you, my friend. Wow, that's awesome. So awesome. Let's see what else we have here. If anyone has any questions about the Express Entry Accelerator too, you can ask those questions, because let's face it, there's so much information out there. Like, people just say, well, why would I pay for this? Like, why would I pay for this when everything is for free online? Well, anyone who's subscribed that's watching here can post a comment and explain why this is so much more effective than trying to search online, including where you're going to get a masterclass, all for whatever it is, like 180 or 90 US, whatever it is with tax, where you can come back forever. You can come back as many times as you want. You can have access to all the future courses that are created. And this one now, as of this weekend, has the new the new GPT, the reference letter builder, which is so cool. And we are actually going to build out other ones as well that help to add to just the tons of material that we have on here. And remember, the next masterclass is actually on Wednesday. So that's when we have our next masterclass. And so you can benefit from it right now. I'm just looking to see if I can find, of all of the course materials, we have like 70, there's like 70 individual lessons. So you can pick and choose whatever you need from the course. And yeah, I don't think there's anything like this anywhere. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I'm just going to go to a few more. And remember, I'm just focusing on the Express Entry ones, guys. Let's see what else here. I think we've hit on a lot of these. Damoon says, for providing Canadian work experience, do we need to add T4s as well as employment letter? In my course, that is something that I recommend. It is, actually. Okay, I think we're pretty good here, guys. Shirag says, hello, does your company help in PNP applications? We absolutely do. Yes, we do. Tussar says, I'm on an LMIA work permit, which is expiring on January 10th. My employer agrees to apply for an extension. How long does it take to get it approved normally? Oh, man, Tussar, LMIAs right now, we're getting, some of them are stretching into 6 or 7 months to get the LMIA approved. And the work permits, you guys have seen, it's absolutely insane, the processing times. If you just slide over here, this is kind of outside of Express Entry, but I just want to show you what's happening. And I don't know, it doesn't have to be like this. I just don't get it. And that's why I'll be honest, I would love to see a change in government. But look at this, 169 days to process a work permit extension. So that's on top of, if we look up here, ESDC, Temporary Foreign Worker Program, processing times, they have their own site. And this was last updated November 20th. Let's see what they put here. Oh, this is such a crock. This is not true at all. Not true. It says for October 2024, well, boy, I can tell you 1 month later, like as high as 7 months to get this approved. Not and these are business days. So maybe that's 2.5 months. No, not accurate. Not accurate at all. So you can do the math, Tushar. Like whatever they do, they have to do it immediately. And what's happening is people are submitting the LMIA application. And remember, it's December 1st. So they have to process, the ads have to run for a full month before you can file the LMIA application. Once it's filed, you can take that file number and apply for your work permit extension. But I've seen many people now getting their work permit extension applications rejected because the LMIA has not yet been approved. Remember, the Liberal government is trying to remove as many of you as possible from Canada. They want to see over 1 million of you leave Canada by the end of 2025 and maybe sooner. Didn't we see some other projections of upwards of 3 million or more they wanted to see over the next few years? Well, it may not be their call if the Conservatives get elected, but yeah, it's just really, really crazy. Let's see. Chaitanya says, Mark, I'll send you a link if I can find it. Some immigration consultant, not even an actual lawyer, is trying to sell asylum refugee applications for 60,000 Canadian. That is sick. That person needs to be the full force of the law thrown against them. That just makes me ill. So ill. Oh my goodness. So ill. Yeah. A Christ Ambassador says, hi, do your firm handle asylum cases or do consultations for asylum applications? Thank you. God bless. We will absolutely do a consultation, but we don't handle those files. So I have no problems meeting with you to talk about really how it works, but I want to strongly, strongly encourage you to slide over to our firm website right here. And if you go to our blog post, you will see that Alicia has actually drafted a very, very good post on claiming refugee status in Canada when not to. It also describes all of the requirements and why it may not be a good decision. But if you go to our YouTube channel, you will also see, I'll just go back here, and you go to videos, you can go to our Time's Up series. And right here, it's also available on our podcast. Alicia and I talk about this at length. So we just uploaded that 3 days ago. I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. Anyone who's considering refugee status, or those of you who are just tuning in late, and the numbers just keep climbing here, watch the video Igor and I did on H&C applications, right? So we've literally covered the evolution of all of the options that might be available to people and why they may or may not be something you want to consider. And it all started with our very first one, which was our Time's Up, what to do when your work permit is expiring in Canada 1 month ago. And we've done the high cost of staying illegally if you choose to stay illegally. The work permit, if it expires, well, what if I switch to visitor status? Of course, I got one with Betsy I did on how to move to Canada, but then no extensions for postgrads. They're not going to be doing more postgrad extensions. So don't let anyone tell you. And we cover that in detail. H&C applications with Igor 8 days ago, and then when not to claim refugee status 3 days ago with Alicia. So please, please go and tune in those, because you can at least get yourself educated and make good decisions. Okay. That's what it's all about. Okay. Thank you. Oh, and then Games Rich here says also, Mark, your Time's Up series is a goldmine of information. Thank you so much for that. I'll give you some applause. Thank you. Okay. All right. And then Damon says, my job title is developer, data science. Would I be data scientist, not coder, software developer? It all depends on your duties. And here's the thing, like, you need more information, but let's just play with this just for a second. Okay. So let's go here and say, let's say here, my job title is developer data science. What is my not code? Let's see if it should prompt you to give it duties, but let's see. So it says here, based on your job title, developer data science, the most appropriate knock would be 21211. Key responsibilities, and this is the key, you can see are associated with it, are these duties right here. For a comprehensive overview, please refer to the official profile. And it's here you can see, oh, thank you, you smart little GPT we built. It's crucial to ensure that your specific job duties align with those outlined in the knock description. If there are discrepancies, consider reviewing other related knock codes to find the best match for your role. So it's qualifying it. But basically what you should have here are my job duties important? Let's see what it says. Yes, they're critically important. Okay. And so and then it talks about how it uses to match and everything here. So how can I help? I'll help to articulate your job duties clearly, align with the correct NOC code. This ensures your reference letter accurately reflects it. Would you like to start refining your job duties to match the NOC? See, so this is the tool. Like, this alone is worth the money that, the whole course is. And so I'd encourage you to go check that out, Damoon. It actually gave me a really good opportunity to share. And for those of you who are wondering what the heck Mark's talking about, if you just joined in, I'm talking about my Express Entry Accelerator course. In here, which I created just this year, it's the 2004 version. It has just a ton of information that will walk you through the whole Express Entry process. But just recently, in addition to our step-by-step video lessons, sample documents, templates, our bi-weekly masterclass sessions, Igor and I have rolled out as a part of this within our Mastering Your Documents here, right after our record of employment lesson. Let's see if I can find it here. I've got records of employment. We've created lesson 48.2, which is how to use our reference letter builder, our GPT, to help you find your correct NOC, get your reference letter drafted properly, and put it together. I'll take one step. Can you create a reference letter for me? I didn't even spell it properly. Using the duties you have outlined above. Let's see what it does here. And you're never going to want to do this because your reference letter needs to be based on the duties that you actually performed. But you can see here it says, how can you help? And so here it is. I'll create a draft reference letter. I'll show you this. Job duties. Here it is, your full name. So here's what it needs. So first, let me gather a few more details. Boom. See? Company details, employment dates, job position details, compensation, supervisor. So you can see it literally walks you through. We've trained this sucker up really good. And no, I wouldn't rely on it 100% because AI is not perfect right now. It's only getting better. And we will be getting, incorporating more into the course. But I strongly encourage you guys, if only for the reference letter builder, subscribe. It's dirt cheap compared to what you get out on the market. And if you just type that into ChatGPT, you're going to get all kinds of things because it's not trained the way we've trained this one. Okay, boy. I think maybe I should, let's see. I better make sure I'm not missing super chats here. Okay. Shrug says, much gratitude for your YouTube content. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And says, can you talk about the PNP 50%? What's your opinion? Well, I believe that every province is going to be more and more difficult to get a nomination because they just don't have the same numbers that they had this past year. Now, in fairness, over the last few years, they've always had moderate levels of about 5,000, right? But it was only the last year or 2 years that they bumped it up to double it. Like Alberta was 9,750. Ontario had a whole bunch more given to Ontario. But when they're reducing by half, each of the provinces is going to be more and more strict on what they're going to do. And it's going to be harder and harder to get those precious nominations from the province when you don't qualify through Express Entry. So there we go. All right, guys. I think that's it. Bella says, postgrad expired already. Can I still apply for a visitor record? You might be able to. And I see, as you guys are here, I can see people subscribing as we talk to the various courses, and I appreciate that. Christ Ambassador says, thank you, Mark. God bless you. The family will schedule a consultation with you regarding their application intentions. That's wise. Then I can tell you either if you have options or you don't have options. Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Okay, guys, thanks so much. And like I said, if you haven't had a chance yet to go over to the Canadian Immigration Institute and subscribe, I'm going to drop in the chat as soon as this video is over, the actual link. I thought I had put up the chat in here, but maybe the actual link to it in the YouTube, but I think maybe I didn't do that. Maybe it didn't get posted in here. Maybe I did it wrong. I don't know. Let's see, Canadian. Oh no, here it is. Here it is right here. So that is the link. I wasn't thinking about promoting the course as I was doing this. Ultimately, the Black Friday sale, I think we talked about, is coming to an end. So you guys have the 50% off will be closing here in just not very long. Let's see. I have to keep restarting this so I can see when it does. 3 hours and 7 minutes. So, and remember, all you need to do is just click on Black Friday, and this here, if you enter in Black Friday number 50, that's the coupon code at the payment portal. So that's what I typed in here to get drop the price from 347 US down to 173 US. It'll vary just depending upon where you're at. And my and the course is based in the US, my software that I use to manage all my online courses. So that's why it's in US dollars. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll end at that. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And I hope that everyone's journey, and the dreams that you have of immigrating to Canada can be realized. All right. Take care.